When we talk about monetization, the first thing we have to do is understand what it is that we're actually selling. I know it sounds like common sense, but the way you approach your sales is going to be very different depending on what it is that you're selling. And so we want to first identify what our product and our service is. This whole section with monetization is going to be filled with psychology. Yes, I'm going to throw in tactics and sales, and we'll teach you about sales funnels, and we'll even teach you about closing if you are making your sales through the phone. But you have to first realize that the only reason anybody ever pays anybody for anything is to solve a problem. And so we want to get to the bottom of what the problem is that your business is trying to solve. And I mean specifically, I don't want to approach this as though, oh, well, we're helping businesses grow their online reach through whatever. It's like, no, what do your clients specifically want? Do they want email signups? Do they want email signups from people in a certain state? Do they want more foot traffic from a particular demographic? Very, very specific. And so we're going to talk about this psychology. Taking a step back from that, we also have to think, what kind of a business is it that we're building? So in this video, I'm going to use a framework that I love. I didn't create this framework. It was created by Nathan Barry. He's the founder of ConvertKit, and he wrote a really great blog post about this. I think it was almost 3 years ago at this point. It's called the Wealth Ladder. And the Wealth Ladder is going to be the foundation of the 4 things that we're selling in your bootstrap business. So I'm just going to go through all 4 of them, and then the next videos are going to go through each one of these stages in the Wealth Ladder with more detail to show you how you should approach selling that particular thing. Okay, let's get started. So number 1 is time for money. The first step in the ladder is time for money. So this could be a job, but for you, it's most likely going to be a freelance business. So the first place that almost every entrepreneur starts is by freelancing. You're selling your time for money. And this is fine. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're selling your time for cheap, but it's still the first step because there's a huge limitation on selling your time for money, and that is that you can't create any more time. So no matter what you do, no matter how much you charge per hour, you can't make more than 24 hours in a day. And everybody's got to sleep. Everybody's got to eat. Regardless of what you think or say, you can't work all the time. You have to hang out with friends and get some leisure time, or else you're going to burn out and lose your mind. So the first step in the ladder is time for money. The second step in the ladder is a service business. So the reason why this has an additional step from a freelance business is because a service business, at least in the definition of this course, is that you can potentially have employees. And so you break out a little bit of that time limitation because you could always hire more employees. So yes, you're still technically selling time for money, but that's not necessarily the case as much as it is in a freelance business because you could hire. And so you can increase the amount of time you have by employee. And this allows you to make more scalability in your service business. Excuse me. The next stage in the ladder is a productized service. This is also manually facilitating a service for somebody, but the difference is you are systematizing your service in a way that makes it very, very, very repeatable. So you can do the same thing over and over and over again, which creates near infinite scalability. The difference, the reason why it's not infinite scalability is there still has to be a person somewhere in this process. So maybe that person is responsible for invoicing. Maybe it's a person that just has to manage the automations that you put together. If you're able to, really productize your service in a way where the whole thing is run through technology, that's great. But there's still going to be a bottleneck somewhere because there still has to be a person that needs to answer for the service that you're facilitating. And then the fourth step is selling products. So products are different because there's technically two kinds of products. You can have a physical product. Maybe it's a t-shirt, right? Like I still have a small t-shirt company. It's a profitable t-shirt company that I enjoy and I've kept alive for the last 10 years, but it's a physical thing that gets shipped through the mail in my case. The real highest stage of the wealth ladder is selling digital products because there's just infinite scale. If you make your product once, theoretically, you could sell that product an infinite amount of times. And the input is basically the time that you have to put into selling it, isn't connected at all to the output, which is the amount of revenue or the amount of profits that selling your product puts into your bank account. You can create it once and then you can sell it forever. And so that's why if you have a digital product that's at the very top of the wealth ladder, we're going to spend a lot of time on digital products. We're going to spend a lot of time on all four of these stages because most of you watching this are starting at the first stage. You're probably freelancers, or maybe you have an employee or two, which is great because that's where I started as well. It's a really great place to be. And frankly, I think those are amazing businesses that most people start and like most people want to work in because most of you enjoy the actual work, the craft of doing whatever it is that you're doing. But through this process and through the monetization stage, I'm going to teach you guys how to make your revenue linear to exponential, so that if you do want to sell products, you can create a product and sell it over and over and over and over again without any additional labor or expenses or costs. All right, so in the next video, let's talk about how to sell your freelance services.